And good morning. I am Tamara Scott, and thank you for joining us with Truth for Our Time as we give you help and hope. Remember that if God's expected you to live through it, He's directed you how to do it in His Word, and there is always a way out. There is always hope, and that's what we enjoy being able to bring you. A little change in plans already. We just started off in the first minute, a little change in plans. We're not reaching our first guest. Hopefully we'll get a hold of Jenni, or she'll call in here shortly. I'm watching the producer to see if that's by chance her. But Ryan, do we have Jenni? Okay, so we're going to put our second guest. We called her early because she's so workable. Let me just go through the rundown with you. And we're live, so I apologize for doing that right in front of you, but we're live, and we kind of go through this together. We started this whole show actually just to get information out on Common Core. I had done radio for years before and had quit and realized no one was talking about Common Core. The truth about Common Core wasn't getting out, and I needed to help if I knew of an avenue or way that I could. And so that's why we started this. So my thanks to Dr. Linda Johnston, who will be joining us at 20 after the hour. We'll be talking with Linda about the violence that's happening in schools, kids who are being given prescription drugs, not just when necessary, but being overprescribed, and then the drugs themselves being dangerous, causing violence and suicidal and homicidal tendencies. And so we'll talk about that with some of the school shootings that we have happening. What is the correlation? What are we doing to our children? And at the end of the hour, Doug Stringer from somebodycares.org will be joining us as well. Doug was really, for all practical purposes, orphaned as a young adult, a teenager on the streets by himself, and managed to make it. So rare that someone without support could make it. And so he's going to come on today and talk to us what dads need to be doing and how government is disabling dads. We may save that for an upcoming show, but we're just going to give some hope for people out there as to what we need to be doing. So first we're going to run to Jenni, who has joined us. Jenni White is with ROPE, Restoring Oklahoma Public Education, ROPE. So if you want to go to that website, Restore Oklahoma Public Education, you'll be able to get some more background information. But Jenni White, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much. I have no idea why technology can be such a problem, and my phone just doesn't work, so I apologize so much.
Well, and it's every time we have, my computer works just great until I have a deadline, until there's a bill at the legislature where I want to get an email alert out to my friends. Something, always when you need it the most, it's there the least. So
I know, so I'm so sorry.
I'm almost, sad that it happened, but glad to hear it's not just me that it happens to. So very good. Listen, I want to talk to you. You have big news out of Oklahoma. It was the momentum and the push for many of us who are fighting state Common Core in states around the nation. Governor Mary, is it Fallon or Phelan?
It's Fallon.
Fallon. Okay, we had heard, a year ago when we were at the David Barton, Glenn Beck project in August in Dallas at the Beck Studios, we had heard she would not sign that bill. What happened that she signed your repeal and replace bill?
Well, I have to say that I honestly do believe this was kind of a perfect storm. I think it did involve, frankly, a lot of prayer and a lot of God there. But I do think it was a perfect storm. What happened was several things. Number one, we actually have the third grade reading retention, just like a lot of states have, that was built into, it's one of the accountability measures that was built into the No Child Left Behind waiver that many states took. And basically what that does is a child must take a reading exam at the end of the third grade year and pass that in order to graduate fourth grade. That came into play this particular year, and that activated a lot of parents. Like we've been doing this for 4 years in Oklahoma, driving all across Oklahoma, educating people, educating legislators at the state capitol, and we have never seen the influx of parents into this movement that we have this year. And I do believe partly that was because of this fourth grade reading assessment, that third grade reading assessment that they put into place, and it did frustrate a lot of parents. I think also this was the first year that many schools were actively using Common Core materials, because in Oklahoma we weren't to be using it and tested over it until this upcoming school year. But there were a lot of schools that went ahead and started using the materials. I think the math and the frustrating way that math is taught in Common Core was coming home to kitchen tables all across Oklahoma, and parents were just seeing it, living it, and thinking, this is untenable. I don't even know where to start with this. So I think that, combined with the background of us, having educated a lot of the legislature over the years, having written a lot of papers, been around, the fact that we joined forces with the Oklahoma GOP, that was huge, and our Oklahoma GOP wrote a resolution against Common Core, and this, don't forget, is an election year for our governor, who is also at the same time chairman of the National Governors Association. So this was kind of, like I said, you can see just from my description that this was kind of a perfect storm, and we were just able to coalesce groups of parents all across the state, get them activated mainly through social media and through emails, writing letters, making phone calls, all that kind of thing. And I do believe that public pressure really did help Governor Fallin decide that, hey, this is going to be an election issue and I better get out in front of it.
And so let's just go back. You were working at this for 4 years. So for everyone out there listening who's working against Common Core across the nation, don't be discouraged. Don't be impatient, but be diligent. Continue the work. Jenni said they'd been working at it for 4 years. And I want to give a shout out. Your national committee woman is Carolyn McClarty.
Yes.
She is the chair of the resolutions committee at the national level for Republican National Committee. And they did do a resolution in April, I think, 2014. 13.
Correct.
So
Last
I think,
year, yes.
Right. And then our Senator Grassley's been very active on this as well. So you're right, those things were happening. But with Mary Fallin being the chair of the NGA, which, if folks don't know the background of Common Core, that's one of the organizations that kind of ushered in what we're now dealing with, this Common Core. Beyond, I suppose, this storm you're talking about, but for her to sign this bill while being chair, what do you think that did for her or to her as far as politically with the National Governors Association?
Well, in all honesty, I would not want to be the governor, because she was really between, you talk about the euphemism rock in a hard place. That was where she was. But, then on the other hand, I'm a conservative. I'm a constitutional conservative. I don't even believe that the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education, should be in existence. I'm for wiping it out.
And let's just give people a little background. Since they've been in existence, education has continued to decline. The testing, the education that kids actually get, the cost has increased greatly, but the education itself has declined ever since the Department of Education has come into being.
Oh, absolutely. You can look, and I did a story on this. You can look at ACT results from 1970, because our first Elementary and Secondary Education Act was signed by Lyndon Baines Johnston in 1964. And it took a while, to get it into schools. But by 1970, you can go back and look at ACT results. I have that actual picture on one of my blogs. It plummets. It plummets. So I don't know what else you can attribute that plummet to, other than once you get the Federal Department of Education involved in state education, which is usurping the parents' role in local public education, you just can't have the same kind of results that you would have when parents can be intimately involved and engaged on the local level in the education of their children. So, you're exactly correct.
Okay, so your governor, even though she's chair, president, whatever the term is, she is in a highly influential position with the National Governors Association, and she still signed your bill. And so we can only attribute it to great peer pressure of those she's supposed to represent. So for everyone out there, if you're listening, no matter where your governor's at, no matter what they're saying, politicians are like children. They behave better when adults are watching. And you must make them responsible and let them know you're paying attention, and you will talk. You will take action. Now, we're on Facebook, and I'm seeing on some of the posts that I put out letting people know you're going to be on this show, Jenni. I already have a post out of Virginia concerned, and this is a fair concern. Is this really a repeal Or is it just that Oklahoma is going to write their own standards and it will just once again be more Common Core without the name?
That is an excellent question, and I can address that. In our bill, that was a concern that we had because we had just seen what had happened in Indiana.
Right.
So in our bill, we have two things that we believe that will prevent that from happening. Number one is that once the standards are written and finished in 2 years' time, we've given ourselves 2 years to create these. At the end of 2 years' time, when they're considered to be finished, we have to compare those standards against the Common Core. So you literally have to take those standards and look at the other ones to make sure that there is not just a rewrite. Oh, my gosh, this looks like the same standard for second grade in Oklahoma standards as was in Common Core. So that's a big thing. Then the other big thing is this. Once these standards are finished, they go before the legislature, and the legislature has an opportunity to approve them or disapprove them. And the biggest change we have here is just antithetical to the situation in which we got Common Core, which was no parental approval, no vetting, just putting it into law and order to get raised to the top funds before they were even available to review, by the way. This allows just regular citizens to contact their state legislators and say, look, you can't approve these, or I don't like line, and they were given line item veto, which is great because you don't have to say, oh, well, we don't like all of these and lump them all out. If there are several of them that are a concern, then just regular Oklahoma State citizens can contact their legislator and say, I don't like the third grade standard for, blah, and then make your voice heard. So I think that this is really, those two things combined can really help alleviate any concerns that we will end up just rebranding the Common Core in Oklahoma.
It's a great question, and thank you for answering it and addressing it, because even in Iowa, we have folks saying we have the Iowa Core, not the Common Core, and yet in our governor's letter to the SBAC, Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium, the paragraph, it's only one paragraph, and it says, we have adopted the Common Core standards, now known as the Iowa standards. The Iowa
Right.
Core. So it's a great, fair question. For those who now are still fighting it in their states, you're not done. You've still got work to do. You're telling people to stay involved, talk to their local legislators about the standards they do or don't like. Invest themselves. These are your children. You must take time to know what's going on. You cannot be lazy about this. You just simply can't.
Oh, absolutely.
And so what would you say to other states? In Iowa, just for those listening, we're going to have Jenni White come, and we think the date is July 1st. That's what we're planning on, and going to be getting that news out, but she'll be coming to help us organize and strategize here in Iowa as well. You'd go to other states, I'm sure, but what would you tell other states as far as their coordination and organization?
Well, and that's an excellent question. I think the best thing you can do is this. I think social media in this particular instance is such an excellent medium because you can find there are tons of pages out there that stop Common Core in Iowa, stop Common Core in Kansas, stop Common Core. What you need to do is inside your state, you need to find each other because the absolute necessity to form a coalition here among as many partners as you possibly can is the key. I believe it's the key because after fighting this for 3 years, it wasn't until this year when we joined with many of these parent groups that began to spring up, and asked them if we could help them or vice versa. And we got with the Carolyn McClarty and Holly Gerard of the Oklahoma GOP, and we got these people involved. We just didn't have the contacts necessary to be able to provide leverage where we needed to. And I think it's important for people to understand that every person has a piece of the puzzle. I just believe that. And you can't complete the puzzle until you have everybody working together as a team. So it's so important for people to coalesce, strategize together, send out emails together, have a letter writing campaign together, because the more voices they hear at one time, the stronger your platform actually becomes. And I just do believe, 100%, I do believe that is the key to turning this around, contacts and coalescing.
And then right now, we're in the middle of an election cycle. What a great time to talk to candidates, both parties. This is not even though we have good results on the Republican side with their resolution nationally and in some of the states, This is not a partisan issue. This is not a party issue. Meg Norris is one of those I love to interview. She's a Democrat, and there are now Democrats against the Common Core. There's a Facebook page, Democrats Against the Common Core. People who are coming together in spite of differences they may have otherwise politically to do what's best for their children. So this is a great time to be asking candidates before the election. And in Iowa, I think we're going to come up with a little palm card of 5 or 6 questions that they can have to ask candidates. We in Iowa had something else this past session. They tried to pass a bandwidth bill, which you and I both know is a backdoor way of bringing in Common Core because they needed it for the testing, the online testing. And so that's one more thing that you can help politicians and candidates be aware of, become more knowledgeable. They didn't know this. Many of the candidates didn't understand the connection there until we explained it to them, and that bill was thankfully defeated last year, but it will likely be back with many other of the governor's initiatives. So, Jenni, they should be asking candidates, what are maybe 2 or 3 questions you think they should ask the candidates right up?
Well, I think they need to, besides just asking specific questions, I think they need to ask them a general question and say, what do you know about Common Core? Because I think right now, particularly in Oklahoma with the passage of HB 3399, we have candidates just riding on the coattails of this particular bill. They may not have helped with the bill like they like to say that they did, but they're riding on its coattails. And I think what you need to do is you need to call them out. You need to say, without leading them in questions, what do you know about Common Core? Why do you feel like it's good or bad for Iowans? I think that is where you really need to catch them, is allowing them to talk in their own words and getting them on record as to what they say. And then that way you can either, how to educate them better, or how to, if you need to, come against them with maybe a robocall in their district, or if they're just simply unwilling to listen. I mean, there are always ways politically. And by the way, I just want to say this. You do not need to be ugly when you confront a legislator.
Thank you.
And I do not be ugly. These people sometimes literally don't know. And if you approach them with, well, I just don't understand how and you get that tone in your voice and you start making accusations, you are going to lose their ear immediately. I hate to preach, but I'm going to, Christ says that we earn people over with love. And it's the same way, when we're trying to deal in politics. I think Christians eschew politics. They say, well, we're not going to get involved in that. That's not something, that we want to be involved in. Christians must be involved in politics. They absolutely must, because everything that happens in the world affects us and our children. And I think that that's what we're supposed to be doing anyway, is be the hands and feet for Christ here on earth. And I think when you do that, that doesn't mean that you go out and you beat people with a baseball bat, or you say nasty things about them, or whatever. You approach them in love, understanding that they may not know, and you're simply there to educate them. And I promise that old line about you get more flies with honey than vinegar, I promise that works. And if you can come alongside your legislator and educate them, I truly believe you will get much further than you ever will by posting a Facebook, missive about how, they don't understand this, or, come help educate them. And
Right.
I think you will come alongside them, and then you'll be able to get a lot further.
Absolutely. And as Christians, if we win a vote, but we lose a soul because they never want to hear from a Christian again because of our attitude, we've lost the battle.
Excellent
so you're absolutely
point.
right. Now,
Perfectly well said.
we have just less than 30 seconds left. Give us the dates of the Can I See conference you're at in Texas.
Oh my goodness, I can't tell you. Isn't that awful?
I think it's June 19th through the 22nd. They can get to that by Alice Linehan's webpage, Can I See, Women on the Wall, Voices in Power. And for more information with Jenni White, you can go to Restore Oklahoma Public Education, remember ROPE. And on that website is a list of organizations that have been fighting the Common Core, which is very helpful. Jenni White, thank you for joining me. We are out of time. Appreciate your work.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back after these messages.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I am Administrative Manager
I am the Senior Technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Restoring hope, open my heart to sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope.
And I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for joining us. You are listening to a new half hour. We thank J. Michael McCoy for sharing his air with us. Restoring Hope is ministering to many, I know, and we're just pleased to be able to come alongside offering more hope. On this part of the segment, we'll be talking about ways you can help and impact your community around you. If God expects you to live through it, He's directed you how to do it in His Word. And we always have hope when we turn to the truth. And so Truth for Our Time with Tamara Scott is a great way that we can give that information to people. So thank you for staying tuned with us. This is our first show getting to be on the American Family Radio Network, and that is just such a high honor in itself. What a great organization. So helpful across the nation on so many different levels. Worked and interviewed with several from that network over the time. We've talked earlier on this show, and if you want to hear that portion, you can go to our archives that are available, Tamara Scott Live on YouTube, Tamara Scott Live on YouTube, and you'll be able to hear the earlier portion of this show where we interviewed Jenni White. Jenni is a superstar that is given some of the credit, a great deal of the credit, for bringing other groups together. Carolyn McClarty, also the Republican National Committee woman, joined in that battle, but stopping Common Core in Oklahoma, Governor Mary Fallin signing the bill, which many thought would never happen since she was the chair of the National Governors Association, which brought in Common Core in the beginning in our country just a year or two back, 3 or 4 years, actually now I guess it's been probably 5 or 6 years. It's been that long since we've been battling it. If you don't know what Common Core is, don't be discouraged. It was snuck in, most likely if your state is one of the 45 that accepted it. It didn't come through your legislature like most economic or educational bills. It was bypassed. Your legislature was bypassed, and many of you were bypassed. And only now that it's coming into your classrooms are parents becoming aware of it and weary of it. The assignments out of sequence, asking too much, asking things out of order from students, but that's a whole nother topic. And the segment we did with Jenni is very short and just talks about the success they had, and she actually gives a great model for other states that they can emulate and have success across the nation. I think there are over 30 states. Remember, there were only 45 states that accepted the standards, and remember, those were without seeing them in an effort to be eligible for the Race to the Top funds. You'll remember that coming out in the bailout and the stimulus funds. Of those 45, over 30 are now battling and have legislation, some sort of a repeal effort in place, or a pause effort to stop the Common Core, because we see what it's doing to our students. If you're listening to this show and you want to catch it live, we tape live each Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central, and you can watch that at webcast1live.com, webcast1live.com. And we again thank Max World and J. Michael McCoy for allowing us to use that studio and be able to bring this to you. Joining me right now is Dr. Linda Johnston. Linda Johnston and I met a couple months back, and then got a chance to meet again. And it's so exciting when you meet someone and you know their understanding of a topic. She's being a doctor. She's into holistic medicine. She's also an author, written several books, and I actually have one right in front of me that you will appreciate. Everyday Miracles by Dr. Linda Johnston, Johnston. Linda, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure, indeed, and thank you for all the good work you're doing educating people on these really, really vital topics for our time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You and I just enjoy talking. When we get together, we could talk, I think, several hours at a time, because one of the topics we discuss is the pharmaceutical industry. And not that it's evil, but how much we as Americans have decided to lean on it and to expect a pill to correct something quickly when it may have to be corrected with the will. Sometimes you can't change with a pill what you have to change with the will.
Well, and truer words were never spoken. We live in a drug culture. It's just the fact of life nowadays, and there seems to be this arbitrary delineation between a legal drug and an illegal drug, but the common denominator is these are drugs. And that arbitrary definition is not saving people from the ravages of these kind of pharmaceuticals that are often inappropriately prescribed or inaccurately prescribed. And we've had long conversations about this, and I really welcome the opportunity on this show to dive a little deeper into what's going on with especially the drugging, the illegitimate legal drugging of our children.
Let's talk about this. First off, the reason I called you was the violence that we see happening in the schools. This is taking place more and more and more, to the point where you hardly turn your head and look at the TV anymore, when it used to just drop you on the floor in shock.
Well, there's been almost incountable numbers of school shootings. Some you hear about, some you don't. And when we see almost every single one of these, whether it's acknowledged or not, every single one of these school shooters is on medication. And these are medications that are given to upwards of 17 million of our children in this country. So there's just a lot of ticking time bombs walking around with these medications. And it is not surprising that the result is these kind of violent acts. Now, remember that, as we've talked about, that violence is not just shooting and committing these really outrageous and atrocious acts of violence, but there's other violence. There's hitting, there's stealing, there's mugging, there's bullying. There's a whole range of violent type behaviors that don't even make the radar. But when you focus on just the shooting, yes, it seems like, wow, that's not really a
big number compared to all the children on these drugs. Well, if you're a victim or your loved one is a victim, it's big enough. But there's a whole range of other violence that doesn't even go reported connected to these terrible drugs.
And so Dr. Ann Blake Tracy has talked about this as well, but these drugs create homicidal, suicidal tendencies in adults, let alone in our children.
Yeah, there's no question. And, one of the problems with the current situation is that there's this kind of made-up disease now called ADD, attention deficit disorder, or hyperactivity deficit order, these kind of things that, and this is in no way not to show compassion and understanding to those parents who have children who have difficulties and behavior problems and other kind of manifestations that are being subsumed under this big rubric. But the problem with this kind of disease entity is, and this is what passes for science these days, it's a disease that has no definitive definitions. There's no testable parameters. There's no agreed-upon symptoms. It's being treated with medications that are chemically related to the most highly addictive and dangerous drugs in our society without knowing how these drugs actually act on the brain and have never been tested in children with growing brains to see what effects and damage they have in the long term.
And let me just insert here.
Go ahead.
We're not saying to any parent that we're not criticizing anyone. We're trying to help someone from understanding further damage that could be caused. In an effort to help your child, running to these drugs could cause long-lasting, even permanent damage later on.
Well, and that's true. I'm glad you interjected that because we're not saying that these problems don't exist. Their children have a multitude of stages they go through. Their brains are growing at an enormous rate in the first 7 years, and then between age 7 and 14, there's another massive amount of growth. There's all kinds of stresses and strains living in our culture with single-parent families, with our culture of drug use and our culture of violence. There's all kinds of stresses and strains, and parents really have a Herculean task to raise children in a real godly and appropriate manner. So I'm not saying that these are not problems that need to be solved. I guess what you and I are both saying is that the medication route is really not necessarily the right way and has inherent dangers that have not been brought out, and the parents have not been informed of some of these dangers of these drugs. They're readily prescribed on very flimsy evidence. I guess that's really my point.
And today we started out talking about the violence that comes. Many of these violent acts that happen in your schools, if you'll do the research, often you'll find that there is an antipsychotic and antidepressant drug that child had been prescribed. And the warning that I want you to understand is these drugs themselves create homicidal, suicidal tendencies. Dr. Ann Blake Tracy has done research on this. I'm talking now with Dr. Johnston. But Doctor, you said something to me last night that just stunned me. I had not thought of this. We hear so much about ear infections, and I was sharing with you how a mother was so distressed because her child had like 5 ear infections in the past year. And you mentioned to me the medication they put that baby on at such a young age can create hyperactivity, which then could lead, now I'm guessing, but that could lead to then a diagnosis of ADD or ADHD that causes them to be on drugs further down the road.
Well, and that's exactly true. There's a continuum. I mean, here's this beautiful baby born to the mother and the father, and the blessing of God is put in their arms, and yet within 24 hours, that child is being medicated with immunizations within 24 hours. Now, we look at a child's brain, and that first 4 years of life, that child's brain is growing at an exponential rate. It's the highest growth rate of brain, and cells are migrating to the right position, connections are being made, and yet in that first 4 years of life, we are inundating that child with medications for which we have no knowledge of how it affects the growing brain. So you also give not only antibiotics to these children, but decongestants and antihistamines, and a lot of those have ephedrine and other stimulants in them. So before the child's brain is even really functioning in its mature way, it's still growing and developing, you're introducing these chemicals that have unknown effects, but we do know they're stimulants. And so the brain is getting acclimated to having these artificial stimulants, and the reaction to the brain is, we just don't know. But we do know that the rise in the diagnosis of ADD is just exponential, and we see these problems more and more. It's not because we're more aware of them, that they've always been there. That's really a cop-out. We're seeing more difficulties, and we're not even asking, hey, maybe something we've done to these children at an early age before we even know what's going on, that we're damaging them. Now, again, we really have to say, parents, this is not a condemnation of any parent. Parents, they trust what the medical profession says. They are wanting to do absolutely what's best for their child. So every parent wants that, and when they're told what's best for your child is when they have an ear infection is to treat it this way, we say, okay, that's a knowledge that they have accepted, but maybe there is some long-term consequences that they are not being informed, so they could make other decisions or with more information, make a decision that's not going to cause these kind of damages in a later stage.
And so you have a practice in holistic medicine. So are there other ways around some of these drugs? Because we know immunities can build up, allergies can build up with drugs. Beyond the long-term effects, we now have some studies, Dr. Robert Whitaker, who's not a doctor, but a journalist, who found that people recovered from depression more quickly in third world countries than they did in America. And the only thing he came to surmise when he studied it, ended up writing a book, The Anatomy of an Epidemic, and there's another book, I'm not thinking of that title right now, was that we put people on these drugs so quickly for depression and for anxiety and for other issues as adults and children that they then can't recover. So
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. You can't recover. Well, just to give you a perfect example, well, not perfect example, an example, let's say that I have fractured my foot, and I want to go for a walk. Now I can't because my foot hurts. So I can say, wow, I've got a problem here with my foot. What's the best way to heal that and take care of that would be not to walk. But I want to walk. I want to walk. That's what I'm not going to let this slow me down, so let me just take a bunch of painkillers so that I can walk. So there's often this idea that when symptoms come to us or the children, that they're inconvenient, it's going to interfere, I have to go to work, or I want to do this, or we're going to take a trip, or I want to do what I want to do. And then we drug up, whether it's for whatever reason, to do what we want to do and not stop and say that this is a problem that needs to have its proper attention, regardless if it inconveniences what I want to do. And I see more damage caused by that kind of force of the I want and trying to override or negotiate what nature has in mind. So when a child is, let's say, 3 years old and they're ill, and the mother wants to go to work or the father wants to go to work, or they want to get ready for a trip, or they want this child to go to daycare, whatever it is that's part of their lifestyle, it's possible in many cases to say, wait a minute, we have to take care of this in the way that it needs to be taken care of. And when it comes to psychotropics, this is even more important than ever, is that we have children now 4 and 5 years old who are put on these kind of medications, which you wonder, why aren't they addressing really what the needs of the child are, even if it's inconvenient or for the structure of the lifestyle that's happening. Children don't need to be on antidepressants at this kind of age. The message they're trying to communicate is that there's a problem, like the broken ankle, that may need a different approach that is centered on the messages and the situation the child is trying to communicate through the symptoms.
I'm talking with Dr. Linda Johnston, Johnston. Linda, if folks want to find you, how would they best do so?
Well, the easiest way is my office phone number, and that's 818-776-8040. That's probably the fastest and simplest way.
818-776-8040. And she does have a website, but it is, of course, being revamped right now. So in time, they can find you again on your website. I'm looking at a study. We're talking about kids who have been overdrugged, overprescribed medicine. And later in this show, you'll be able to hear, if you go to Tamara Scott Live on YouTube, the interview I'm going to do with Doug Stringer, who was orphaned for all practical purposes at a young age on his own on the streets, and was able to overcome that against all odds. And so he's going to talk to us about dads and about kids and how we can overcome some of these challenges. But Linda, as I'm reading this article from consumerreports.org, in the last 10 to 15 years, according to recent research, the number of kids has nearly tripled taking antipsychotic drugs. It's increased just 25% since 2006. Linda, if someone would kidnap a child, we would be so concerned what they might do to our baby. And to think that they might drug our child would just unravel us. And yet, as you're telling us, many of us, in thinking we're doing what is in the best interest of our child, are drugging them just to continue the pace that we keep and the schedule that they have to meet.
And it's, the sad thing, the tragic thing about this is there's no one bad actor. I mean, the parents are really doing the best they can in a society where oftentimes both parents are forced to work just to put bread on the table because of high taxes and other things. We have the schools where there's the teachers and the school districts are being put on pressure as well. And you talked about Common Core and some of these other pressures that the schools are under. So often the school teachers are in unions where they don't have the flexibility to do. The classes are getting bigger. They're not allowed to segregate out children who have certain behavior problems. And the pharmaceuticals, now, they bear a lot of responsibility, but we have to remember, if there wasn't a market for these drugs, they wouldn't be sold. And you have people who are maybe the grandparents of this child taking Ritalin or taking Prozac, who's living on a pension, and part of that pension profile might be pharmaceutical stocks. So there's no one bad actor. We just know there is one distinct victim, and that is the children.
It is absolutely the children.
It's our heart goes out to parents who are faced with some of these really difficult choices. And for that, I often tell the parents that I deal with, you have to have your medication IQ. And I call that the medication IQ is the I is to be informed and the Q is to question. Every parent, please do not believe anything the doctor tells you, the reports tell you, the media tells you. Go do your own research. And it's easier now than ever with the Internet. Now, there's a lot of nonsense on the Internet, but there's a lot of interesting things. So you're the parent, and no one is going to care for that child as much as you are. No one.
Nor should they.
Not the doctor, nor should they. It's the parents. So get on that Internet, go look up these things. And now many parents who've decided to do that run into a lot of resistance, even sometimes embroiling them in legal battles and custody battles, because some of these other groups are very insistent on making sure that the kids are drugged, and some parents they've been told their child can't come back to school unless they take drugs. So you have a teacher prescribing in essence instead of the doctor. So all I say is, please, parents, stay educated and informed and stand your ground. This is your child. And there's lots of resources out there because this is a growing movement of educated parents who are saying, no, I've been not told the truth or the entire truth about what's involved, and the whole pathologizing of symptoms. And that's a fancy way of saying we take normal human emotions, normal growing stages that all humans have to go through to learn to live in a society and live in our life, and we've made those all pathologies that have to be treated, and that's not right. I mean, in life we always confront certain challenges, and that starts from the moment. The first challenge is getting out of the womb into the world. That's a big challenge, and it continues on from there. And to say that these growing pains of adults and children are pathology is a fundamental philosophical evil that is fueling this idea that these things have to be treated and medicated. They're not. They're growing stages of life that need support and love and care and wisdom and guidance from adults. And when we see in a Christian community, often parents who do that with their children, we see these wonderful children who haven't been medicated, who have embraced life and have the tools inside themselves to face these challenges. So there are other options, and this automatic knee-jerk reaction to say you're pathologic and here's a pill to make you not pathologic that philosophy is really crumbling the very structure of our society and what it means to grow and be a normal human being.
And Linda, I am in that same article reading age 2 to 5 children, they have doubled between 2001 and 2007 in an analysis of antipsychotic prescriptions. Children 2 to 5.
Yep.
2 to 5.
Well,
most of the children were 4 to 5-year-old boys with ADHD or disruptive behaviors. And so really what we're doing is drugging children into submission when probably what they need is a day in the park, the ability to wrestle with a friend, to work out that energy, and instead we're trying to almost create a submissive attitude by force, and we instead put them in a stupor.
Well said. There's ramifications to this beyond what we can that are evident, and one is that we have about 1 in 10 adults, well, actually more than adults, from the age of 12 on, 1 in 10 people in this country are on these medications. So next time you're at the market or at a ball game, you just go through the audience and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that one, and 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, 1 in every 10. And it's much, even in children in school are also much higher percentage.
Well, Linda Johnston has been my guest today. Linda, thank you so much for joining, and we definitely have to have you back. We've got to give people a way out. There is hope, always in the name of Jesus Christ. He can deliver you from anything, no matter what the cause. We want to thank Christians for America for coming alongside. They do work for people who have been addicted to prescription drugs as well, and we enjoy working with them. I am Tamara Scott. If you want more about our show, you can go to Tamara Scott on YouTube. And we thank you all for taking time to be involved and to be a part of this. Remember, if God expects us to live through it, He's directed us how to do it. There is always a way out, and usually if we look up, we see it. So I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for joining us on Truth for Our Time. Be encouraged and never be complacent. He's given you a reason and a purpose. Act on it.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
Hey, what's wrong? Logan wants Let's Rock Elmo for his birthday, but since Steve lost his job, I don't think we can afford it. What did you do for money last year when you and John were struggling to make ends meet?
My secret? I went to Me and Mommy to Be. We sold all of Megan and Ryan's clothes and toys there. They give back the highest percentage on their items in the area, and it was so easy.
Megan's clothes? She's 15.
Yes, they can sign newborn through trendy teens. We're not struggling now, but I'm going to keep saving and making money at Me and Mommy to Be.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent.
And thank you for staying tuned. We thank our sponsors and want to give them app time. If you've been listening this whole time, I just got a text. Why are you closing at 10:48? We are now airing part of the show on American Family Radio. We're very thankful for that partnership. And of course, if you want to help us be part of that, please contact us in any way. You can get a hold of us at Truth for Our Time on Facebook. You can get a hold of us on Twitter. Truth for Our Time is on Twitter. And we'd love to be able to partner with you, truthforourtime@gmail.com as well. Our mission is to get truth out, God's word in today's world. And we're just very thankful that we now have this opportunity, thanks to Restoring Hope as well, to get that information on that wonderful radio network. Now we want to bring you another portion. And for any part of the show that you ever miss, you can always go online, Tamara Scott Live, and just check out the archives on YouTube. You can always catch us live at 10 a.m. on Webcast 1 live each Wednesday morning. But now we're gonna finish this program. I didn't think it would be fair to have this segment without hope. And you know, Father's Day is coming up. We talked to Basil Baz last week. Basil Baz is a man who goes in and rescues children from trafficking situations, from non-custodial parent kidnappings when it's safe, when the child's better off in a different environment. And so today I've got Doug Stringer on the line. And Doug is one of those statistics that made it when most don't. He was able to overcome several adversities, and I just think he gives us good hope when we see so many kids struggling today. Doug, thank you for joining me.
It's great to be with you.
It's good to reconnect. I haven't been able to interview you for a couple years now, and so thank you so much for being so available as soon as I called. I appreciate that. You are based out of Texas, and the website is somebodycares.org. And you are, what is the basis of your ministry?
Well, we have four components. One is our regional, national, international prayer initiatives. Secondly is our Compassion Coalition of Somebody Cares chapters and affiliates around the world. And then we have our disaster relief arm, which is a global compassion response network of organizations. And then finally, because of all that we're doing, and through DougStringer.com, we're actually doing a lot with leaders. We probably spoke to about 30,000 leaders, from politicians to preachers, in the last 4 years in various countries, and really feel like it's important for us to raise up a new generation of preachers and politicians who walk by character and personal conviction rather than their personal preferences.
And so the reason I wanted to talk to you, and am I correct in saying you're one of those that overcame the statistics as a young teen or a young adult? You were kind of on your own on the street?
Yes. Well, initially what happened was I was actually born in Japan out of wedlock. My father was an underwater demolition frogman. They're known as Navy SEALs, and during the Korean War. And but he did come back and marry my mom, brought us to San Diego. And during the Vietnam War, he, of course, served as well. And my stepfather later came into the picture, who was a hospital corpsman. And so, but both were alcoholics. Both had challenges. And so there was a really awkward relationship all those years. And then I found myself as a teenager for a period of time living in dumps and living on the streets, living on freight trains, hitchhiking up and down the West Coast from Washington, Oregon, and California. It was during that season there were individuals that I still remember to this day that reached out to me, sowed some seeds, and that finally when I came to Houston, Texas in 1978, looking for my biological father, it was in that season of time at 21 years old, a period of time until I became 24, that the Heavenly Father found me and literally turned my world around, and have never looked back since.
So what can you offer us? On my way into the studio today, Doug, I drive by a courthouse for a fairly large metropolitan area, and the kids outside, the young people, just look so lost. My goodness, Doug, they don't even know where their waistlines are at. Their britches are below their bottoms.
I know, and that's partly because we've watered down the standards for these young people, and oftentimes we want to be like them, and we don't want to rock the boat. But I'm finding more and more that this next generation really is looking for something to believe in. I was just at one of our chapters in Florida at one of their gatherings, and I met a young man who is now, we just helped him sponsor his first year of college. We were scholarshiping him, but he was a homeless teenager at the age of 15 and had really no hope. He was kind of a statistic, but some people gathered together, helped him out. We got him a place to stay. Then he became the captain of the wrestling team, and today he's a bright young man who's getting ready to go to college. So it really is about us being available and being a tangible expression of Christ to this generation, because I really believe it's the very generation others have given up on that God really wants to pour his grace out upon. And that's, in fact, I think you remember that I had written a couple of books on the issue. One is called Who's Your Daddy Now?
Right.
The other was Hope for a Fatherless Generation. And really, Hope for a Fatherless Generation really was about the state of the nation, state of the church, and the state of a generation, that we need to find hope again. And if we don't have that hope, in fact, it was during a presidential election. Prior to it, I was speaking at one of the conventions, and just talked about the importance that if we're going to really access this next generation, empower them, they need something to believe in and a hope beyond what they're seeing right now. And they really need to see that in the church and through the church.
And give us the name of the second book. The first one is Who's Your Daddy Now? And the second one? Hope
for a Fatherless Generation.
And so you and I were talking, and I'm definitely going to want you to come back on another time with us, because you and I were talking about how dads are being disabled. They're not being allowed to really fulfill the godly role of being a father in today's culture. But quickly, in the next, we maybe have 4 or 5 minutes left, talk to parents out there. It's not just we have dads missing in action. We do have a dad deficit. But for those dads out there, give them some encouragement, some tips on what they need to do to be the dad they're called to be, not the dad society allows.
Absolutely. You know, you and I talked about that that there is an undermining of the stability of being a man or being fathers. And, you know, we put all the blame on parenting, and it's always the parents' issue, but yet we're contending with such complexities when it comes to the media and Hollywood and the movies and music, the entertainment industry, and of course with all the recent, in the last few years with this current administration and things that are going on, that in one sense we're saying take responsibility, men. In the other sense we're saying, but we're going to take every tool that you have to be a man, to be a father, undermine what those core principles are, and we're taking that away from them. You know, we're fighting against traditional marriage. So now we're saying, what is a father? So take responsibility, but how do you become a father or a good husband when you don't even have the proper foundations to build on anymore? And then, go ahead.
Well, no, you go ahead.
Oh, and I was thinking in the sense that we're trying to build on faulty foundations, but we need to go back and repair the foundations that God has given us in our Judeo-Christian beliefs, and also the foundations that our founding fathers have established. But what we're doing is we're taking everything away. We're ripping open this net, and we're expecting the fathers and the parents to take responsibility for something that they have no empowerment to do.
Right. You're absolutely right. And we see that in the Justina, I think it's Pellier case, where she's even been taken away from her parents who were doing what was best, they felt, in their own eyes. What I was going to say there is most children, 4 to 5-year-olds, have now been put on drugs for disruptive behavior. The analysis found that 2 to 5-year-olds had doubled between 2001 and 2007 in the numbers of kids who've been put on those drugs, dangerous drugs, and many of them are just boys, and because they're disruptive in class or whatever the cause. And you and I both know they just need to be outside and have a chance to wrestle and play and get some of that energy out, but we're not even allowing them to be what God created them to be, the very natural thing a boy is. It's to the point where no wonder they're ill-equipped as a father and as adult. We have limited and suppressed all they were born to be from a very
Absolutely.
early age.
And Tamara, you know, I minister to and talk to a lot of professional athletes, as well as working with some friends that are Navy SEALs and Special Forces. And there's such a demoralization right now, even in the military. There's a demoralization in sports that, you know, where a man could have this outlet, boys could have outlets to get out there and do their sport. And now they're basically being told to dumb everything down. They can't say what they really want to say. You know, the beginning, you probably read this before, but the Navy SEAL ethos, the first paragraph says, in times of war or uncertainty, there is a special breed of warrior ready to answer our nation's call. A common man with uncommon desire to succeed. Forged by adversity, he stands alongside America's finest special operations forces to serve his country, the American people, and protect their way of life. It says, I am that man. Today, we need courageous men, a courageous manhood. We need men who can rise up in this world of uncertainties, who will be a special breed of spiritual men who are ready to answer the call to be these courageous men. I believe that God is calling for common men who, through Christ, will have a desire to win that is greater than their moments of challenges and pain and the obstacles that are facing them today.
Doug Stringer, we are out of time, but I want you to come back on with me, and we'll do the portion of this show that is on American Family Radio, because the world needs to hear what you're saying, and I thank you for saying it when it may not be popular. It's contrary to what our kids are being taught and parents are being told in the doctor's office. My guest has been Doug Stringer, restoring Somebody Cares, somebodycares.org, and we thank Restoring Hope for allowing us to share their half hour on American Family Radio today. If you want more information, you can always find us at Truth for Our Time on Facebook, or Truth for Our Time at Gmail. I am Tamara Scott. We are totally out of time. Thank you for giving us your time today as we help you get God's Word in today's world. Be encouraged, but never be complacent.